Well, hello there, and I do hope you're all well. Now, does this James O'Brien caller really hit him with an amazing zinger? What am I talking about? Well, after spending the first hour of dismantling the stupidity of Jacob Rees-Mogg on his nonsense of blaming the French over the Dover catastrophe, the next hour was spent on the utter drivel from Liz Truss spouting nonsense about ignoring the First Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon. I've been quite insulting to someone who's won elections. Well, on his LBC show, James O'Brien received a call from a guy from Edinburgh, and to say it descended into the ridiculous was an understatement.
Martin's in Edinburgh. Martin, what do you reckon?
Hi, thanks for taking my call, James. I think one of the main tactics of the SNP is to really focus attention onto constitutional issues, really at the expense of governing the country properly. We have one of the highest death tolls in regard to COVID in the UK. Actually, in regard to Europe, we have one of the highest death tolls. I work in a local food bank, and I regularly see a huge amount of poverty in Edinburgh, and I just don't think they have a hugely impressive record. And I think that culminates in them trying to get attention as far as possible for the sort of constitutional issues in regard to the union versus independence. And I think, it might be inelegant to call it attention-seeking, but I think it's trying to draw a lot of attention to...
Could we call it vote-winning instead?
Yeah, I know SNP voters...
Because what you say when you say that you should ignore Nicola Sturgeon is that you should ignore not just the people who voted for her, but the fact that she keeps winning majorities. That's quite an odd approach to election.
Yeah, I think she wins because there's a lot of support for an independent Scotland. I don't think she wins...
And is Liz Truss saying that support should be ignored? Because that strikes me as a bit dangerous.
Well, no, but what I would say...
What do you think she's saying then? What's she saying to people who vote for Nicola Sturgeon because they like her politics?
Drawing attention to the fact that in 2014 we were told it was a once-in-a-generation referendum. We weren't told it would be once every 10 years. And,
right, but then surely if you want to challenge somebody, the worst thing you can do is ignore them, Martin.
I agree, but...
Well, hang on a minute. I thought you were saying the exact opposite. So is Liz Truss drawing attention to Nicola Sturgeon when she says that we should ignore her? That seems quite an odd argument.
I wouldn't say you should ignore Nicola Sturgeon.
But that's what Liz Truss said, and that's what we're talking about. So it's unlikely when she said, I think that we should ignore Nicola Sturgeon, that what she really meant is that we should draw a lot of attention to pledges made before she was First Minister back in 2014. I just want to understand the argument that you think you're making.
Well, the argument I'm making is that we were told very clearly in 2014 that it was going to be a once-in-a-generation...
But how is Liz Truss saying we should ignore Nicola Sturgeon designed to draw attention to that well-rehearsed and, I think, largely irrelevant post-Brexit line?
Which post-Brexit line?
The one you keep spouting. How is Liz Truss saying that we should ignore Nicola Sturgeon designed to draw attention to something that was said in 2014 in the context of an independence referendum that never conceived of the possibility of Scotland being dragged out of the European Union against its will?
Well, it does seem strange to say I want to stop being ruled by London so I can start being ruled by Brussels.
But again, you seem to be reading an answer from a piece of paper containing a question I haven't asked you. I'm just examining what you've already said. How is Liz Truss saying that Nicola Sturgeon should be ignored under your explanation? How is that designed to return attention to things that were said about a referendum at a time when Nicola Sturgeon wasn't the First Minister? And you know, because you live in Edinburgh, that the original raison d'etre, the founding cause of the Scottish National Party is independence. To suggest that they should stop pursuing independence is, you'll forgive me, but that's really stupid.
Well, I think we should be honest. We were told... And I'm
Go on, then. It's never too late to start.
We were told this would be once in a generation, and I think...
But again, we come back again, Martin. You seem to be reading off a laminated sheet that's got nothing to do with the conversation that we're having. How does telling Conservative members that Nicola Sturgeon should be ignored at an English hustings, how can that possibly be designed to draw the attention of the country to things that were said in 2014 when Nicola Sturgeon wasn't First Minister?
I believe, James, it's designed to ignore her demands, not necessarily to ignore her as a person.
But the existence of the Scottish National Party is to pursue Scottish independence.
Okay,
and she keeps winning it, and she keeps winning elections.
Sure. Should we have a referendum every year until we finally go independent?
No.
Okay, but you agree with me in that sense. You agree that there's got to be a limit on how many times we vote.
Again, you've pulled out another laminated sheet that bears no resemblance whatsoever to the conversation that we're having.
You accept that there has to be a limit on how many times we vote, right?
Yes, and therefore we can only ever have one. Ha-ha, Zinger from Martin in Edinburgh. The question is not about referendums this morning. The question is not about 2014. The question is not about anything other than why Liz Truss has told English Conservatives at a hustings in England that Nicola Sturgeon should be ignored, and what message does that send to Scottish people? What message does it send to you?
I think it sends out the message that we should ignore demands that are ultimately unreasonable.
So we should ignore the results of elections. If a party dedicated to Scottish independence wins an election, we should absolutely ignore the reason why that party exists. It's quite. It's a position, Martin.
Can I make the point?
Well, as long as it's relevant to the question that I've asked, which would be a first in this exchange.
I will.
Yes?
If we had never had a referendum, James, then I would be firmly in favour of it. But we have had one, and you've already conceded that it would be unwise to have a referendum.
I haven't conceded anything. You have another referendum as soon as possible, because Scotland is now being dragged out of the European Union against its will.
So we should stop being ruled by London so we can start being ruled by Brussels, which makes a lot of sense.
Oh, love it. That's another laminated sheet. No, because Scotland voted to stay in the European Union.
So did London. So did London.
And I wish we had a chance of staying in it, but we don't. Scotland does, because it has a democratically elected political party dedicated to independence.
Hold on a second, James.
I'm holding, Martin. Hang on, just make sure you've got the right laminated sheet. Go on, say something about London.
Referendum on independence.
But why are you asking me a stupid question?
It's not a stupid question, James.
Okay.
London, why shouldn't they get a referendum on independence, James?
Okay, because London can't leave the United Kingdom, Martin.
They could become a city-state. Ever heard of Singapore, James?
Oh, you've got me there, Martin. You're really running. You're really running rings around me today.
Certainly am, James.
You absolutely have. Here am I calling for London to become a city-state.
Well, why can't they? Is it physically impossible?
No, you explain why they can't, Martin.
It's not physically impossible. Singapore was a city-state the last time I checked.
Okay, so we're in favour of London becoming a city-state if we think that the democratically elected First Minister of Scotland should not have the reason for her party's existence to be ignored.
Okay, but we had a referendum in 2014.
It's not okay. Yes, before the European referendum, before Scotland was dragged out of the European Union against its will, having been promised in that referendum that could never happen. I think we're probably exhausting our joint reservoirs of goodwill here, Martin. So I'll ask you one more time. I'll ask you one more time.
Okay, and I'll answer this time.
Why did Liz Truss last night suggest that the First Minister of Scotland should be ignored by the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom?
I think she did it because it's a constant source of irritation for Westminster when you have part of the UK demanding over and over again independence, even though we had a vote.
And why does the Scottish National Party exist?
They exist to stand up for Scottish interests, which isn't necessarily synonymous with independence.
You're a member of the party, are you, or should we rely upon people who support them to tell us why the Scottish National Party exists?
Well, I mean, why does the Green Party exist? I'm not a member of that, but I believe they exist to stand up for environmentalism.
They do stand up for environmentalism, and when they're in power, they will do things that are designed to deliver a more environmentally friendly environment. Why does the Scottish National Party pursue power?
They pursue power for a variety of reasons, because they want to better the interest of Scotland, but they also have to be honest as well.
What is their abiding reason for existing, Martin? You must be vaguely aware of your own ridiculousness now.
No, Scottish...
No? Okay, so what is the abiding reason for the existence of the SNP? What's the main reason? What's the main? You said a wide array. Just give me the main reason for why the SNP exists. And
the main reason is sovereignty, which can come in the form of devolution or independence.
Okay, up with sovereignty. There's a winning formula, as everybody in the United Kingdom can attest. Martin, have a lovely day, and next time you ring in, just get the laminated sheets in the right order before you start reading from them. 10 to 12 is the time. Dear James, Guildford voted to remain in the European Union. Can we become an independent city-state as well, please? I don't know. You'll have to go back to our friend in Edinburgh to discuss the plausibility or otherwise of an independent Guildford managing to rejoin the European Union.
Absolutely mental, wasn't it? You could tell that in the end, I think even he knew he was talking utter guff, but still on and on he spouted, and this nonsense about 2014. And I don't know enough about Scottish referendum, but even I knew the reason why Scotland should have another one. And in a small, tiny way, I think I did too. And I left that little bit in at the end about Guildford, because I thought that was pretty sharp from the guy who sent that tweet in. And I think it just showed the utter nonsense that this guy was spouting. But yeah, I do hope you enjoyed it, because I just love the way just I suppose in a way patronised him, because I think he was just an idiot, wasn't he? But anyway, I do hope you enjoyed the video, and until the next time I shall bid you farewell and take care.